Number 6 is frustrating because we've had a lot of questions in this passage that don't have line references. And so it feels like this is another one where you're going to have to skim and look all over for these answers. But luckily, if you have been practicing and you know the rules that the SAT goes by, this one is much easier to deal with. So remember, if we don't have a line reference and we're on a question that's in the middle of the other questions, right? If it's at the beginning, it's probably a whole passage question that's about the entire passage, about the main idea. But if it's in the middle, we can probably follow the chronology rule, which means that this is not about everything. It's about one or two specific lines within the passage that they just didn't bother to give us. But we can use other questions to help us find out where to read for this question, right? So we should look at the last question that had a line reference, which was number 5. And for that one, we got that the answer was C. But even if we didn't know for sure what that answer is, look, it's the beginning. It's the first paragraph of this passage. So it probably means that the answer number 6 is going to be after that first paragraph. And we can also look at number 7, which has a line reference, 46 to 59. So the answer to number 6 is probably also before 46 to 59. So here, I've given us the lines that kind of includes. So that's basically this second paragraph and third paragraph. And we start at 22 and go to 45. Now look, if we can't find the answer here, then that's unfortunate. The chronology rule sometimes gets broken and we may need to read more, but let's start with smaller stuff and see if we need more, right? Why read everything to start if it's more likely that it's going to be in this spot? So let's make sure we also know what we're looking for question 6. The narrator indicates that the contrast between the ink-making studio at Immortal Heart Village and her family's ink shop is that the ink shop... Okay, so we're talking about two things, the studio and the shop, and we want to know about the contrast. So I'm just boiling that down, narrowing my focus to 3 ideas here that I'm going to look for as I read the passage here. So let's take a look. I tried to notice everything so I could later tell Gao Ling what I had seen and tease out her envy. The floors of the shop were of dark wood, polished and clean, no dirty footprints, even though this was during the dustiest part of the summer, and along the walls were display cases made of wood and glass. Okay, I know this is about the shop. The glass was very shiny and not one pane was broken. Within those glass cases were our silk wrap boxes, all our hard work. They looked so much nicer than they had in the ink-making studio at Immortal Heart Village. Okay, they looked so much nicer. That seems important. Now we can keep going and see maybe if they keep talking about this. I saw that Father had opened several of the boxes. He set sticks and cakes and other shapes on a silk cloth covering a glass case that served as a table on which he and customers leaned. First he pointed to a stick with the top shaped like a ferry boat and said with graceful importance, "Your writing will flow as smoothly as a keel cutting through a glassy lake." He picked up a bird shape. "Your mind will soar into the clouds of higher thought." He waved toward a row of ink cakes embellished with designs of peonies and bamboo. "Your ledgers will blossom into abundance while bamboo surrounds your quiet mind." Whew. Now that's fast. That's how fast I read in my head when I'm trying to read with purpose, right? Because I don't need to understand all this stuff about the peonies and whatever else they were talking about, the ferry boat. I don't even know what's going on. But I know when they're comparing the shop to the studio. That's the stuff that triggers my brain to kind of slow down a little bit. So it's okay to kind of skim for those ideas. That's fine. And if we need to understand more, we always can. But we don't need to understand everything in these lines. And if you are trying to do that, you're just wasting your time and your mental energy. Let's now go to the choices and see if any of them match with this very quick version of what we read. And if not, we, again, can read more. There's nothing preventing us from reading more. So let's see. So they're talking about what do we know about the ink shop? The ink shop displays the family's ink more impressively. Okay. Well, it does say that they're nicer than they were in the studio. So the shop is better than the studio, it seems, right? They looked nicer in the shop than they had in the studio. That seems to match. I don't know enough though, right? It's like a loose match. They're both positive. That's about all I really get from that, but that might be enough. Let's look at the other choices and see what else. It's more conveniently located for the public? No. They never talk about where it's located and how the other people are getting there. It provides greater individual attention to customers. Well, again, it's not really about the customers. That may be true, but the only thing they're saying about the studio is how nice the box looked there. So it's not making a comparison about this. That's just wrong. And it offers a larger space for presenting products. Well, they do talk about the space, right? They're talking about the floors of the sharp or dark wood. Actually, no. It's clean, dusty. Yeah, it actually never says anything about how big the space is, now that I look at it. So, okay, either way, they don't say anything about how the studio looks either. All we get is that the boxes look better in the shop than they do in the studio. And that's enough to pick A. It's a weak choice. It's also saying just kind of the same thing. More impressively is a way of saying better with just a more impressive word. So that's all we need. And look, we had to read a lot, but the answer was pretty obvious once we found it. I don't think that we were debating between these other answers that intensely. So that's the good thing about no line reference questions is once you find the line, usually the answer is pretty obvious. So use the chronology rule to narrow your focus and make the finding easier so that then the question itself as a whole is also easier. The chronology rule works.